What it do, family? Thank you for tuning in for another review. Today, we are doing a recap for 2019's The Upside. Now, I preface it that way because this is actually the third remake for 2011 French film The Untouchables, which is based on a true story about, and I'm going to try not to butcher their names here, Philippe Bozo de Barco and his French-Algerian caregiver Abdel Chalou. The film was a critical and financial success, earning nearly $500 million worldwide against a $10 million budget, which spawned the first remake in 2016, an Indian film called Operai, and following it later that year was an Argentinian version titled Inseparable. So by the end of this year, I don't know, I'm expecting a Filipino or Japanese adaptation to come out, so tune in for the rest of this review. Thank you so much.
Now, shall we begin?
Yes, we shall. Now we start off the film once again with a scene that takes place towards the end. Yet another example of a film that does not have qualms about having their story set in chronological order. What appears to be a high-speed chase is a gaffe played by the main character, Dell, portrayed by Kevin Hart, to raise the spirits of Philip, an affluent quadriplegic who fakes a seizure to beguile the police into believing there is an emergency taking place. Upon being escorted by the police, Philip ponders after Dell's attempt to cheer him up what they should do now. We immediately cut to 6 months earlier, where we see the strain of Philip's condition and how it's affecting his life. A man that has to be coddled and waited on like you will a baby. And on the flip side, we witness the plight of Dell, a man constrained to the decisions and mistakes he's made in the past. A parolee that has to navigate his way in a system that only serves to limit his growth. Two men, polar opposites, yet two sides of the same coin, both helpless if you will, with what appears to be a bleak future consisting of people around them who can't seemingly be able to help them out of their predicament. What we behold next can only be deemed what most people will call a happy accident, which your boy could use a lot more of, but I digress. We see Dell make his final round and end up at Philip's building, set to interview for the janitor's position, but he inadvertently mistakes a candidate interviewing for a life auxiliary as applying for the same job. Straddling along, we see the amount of people vying for this opportunity, and the amount of brown-nosing and attempts at flattery is comical, especially in contrast to Dell's devil-may-care attitude, which is part and parcel why Dell was offered the job, even after barging in for a signature to his employment papers. Philip, intrigued by how Dell carries himself, allows him to take the night to think about the offer, even despite his reservations about being a servant in this opulent plantation, as Dell so eloquently put it. Nonetheless, the offer stands whether he chose to accept it or not. Transition into the next scene, we see the interesting juxtaposition from a life of lavishness and luxury to that of impoverishment and destitution, when we are introduced to Dell's family dilemma, a mother and son living in squalor, discontent with the fact Dell isn't there to provide like he should, thus leaving him, because of how dire the situation is, to accept Philip's offer to become his caregiver. Upon returning to the penthouse to accept the job, we learn that it's a live-in position, which is not too shabby considering the level of opulence Dell would be situated in. The level of care we initially see Dell is capable of is average at best, indicating again his lack of being present in his child's life. A sore spot for Dell to be sure. Nonetheless, we also discover this might be why he was offered the position when Philip informs him of his DNR rule. DNR, for you laymen out there, of course standing for do not resuscitate. In Philip's case, no extraordinary measures in the event he stops breathing, which if it were me in Dell's case having a guilt like that, I'm doing anything and everything to make sure I'm keeping my bread and butter alive. The way they play off how wealthy Philip is pretty hilarious. The guy is loaded. And for the average man, this is like the adult version of Neverland or Disneyland. From the collection of luxury vehicles to the amount Philip spends for his compilation of exorbitant artwork, to most would be somewhat frustrating. because all one could think about is how they would spend that money, which, to be fair, is understandable. And the exuberance is reaffirmed even further when we see how much Dell is making a week as Philip's caretaker. Shifting to the next scene, we see Philip suffers from periodic neurogenic pain that's described as if your body is on fire. This, coupled with the fact he lost his wife to cancer, infers why he has an unwillingness to live. I appreciate the fact that the makers of this film take time to highlight the medical industry when it comes to prescriptions for pain medication, in contrast to medicinal marijuana, which is making strides and becoming more and more an option for patients who yearn for a more effective product. Finally hitting the comedic notes of this film, we see the finer points of what a life auxiliary actually does, which in Philip's case is having to change a catheter for urinary reasons. And that's as descriptive as I'll get, because this is still YouTube at the end of the day, and I ain't trying to get striked out here. But I do have to point out that we learned that in Philip's condition, he's still able to get excited. Wink, wink. Which sparks an idea in Dell's head to take initiative and invite masseuses over to fulfill that need. Hey, we still men at the end of the day. The benefits of Dell's job allows him to self-actualize and pursue other talents he may not have otherwise strived to attain because of his hectic and time-consuming lifestyle. This in turn led me to a moment of introspection that made me wonder about the amount of untapped potential in the world. If given the same opportunity Dell is afforded with capital to fuel a vision and space to execute that dream, we'd be better off as a society, and that was one aspect I was able to evoke from this film. When we delve further into Philip's life, we come across the fact he's in an epistolary relationship, which is wicked if you think about it. It's like soldiers sent to fight in wars of old, and in order to communicate, they would have to write letters to their loved ones. And as charismatic as Dell is, the thought of such an arrangement is absurd and rightfully so. I would naturally, after a fashion, want to meet someone to ultimately be on the safe side. Your boy ain't trying to be catfish out here. But that push Dell gives to Philip to eventually call her is like a metaphor for life in a lot of ways. A great man once said, "He who is not courageous enough to take risks will accomplish nothing in life." In case you were wondering who that man is, Muhammad Ali, y'all. You know those montage scenes that serve as filler for the filmmakers to push that narrative along while simultaneously saving time for the finer points? Well, I decided to breeze past that and get to the meat and potatoes by addressing Philip's pathological aversion to unwanted attention, mainly due to insecurities he has about his condition, which is why he loses control when he is coerced into a surprise birthday party, even despite the fact he expressly forbade it. We witness a cathartic moment between Dell and Philip when, through his anger at his executive Yvonne, Philip redirects this vitriol at Dell when he uses some not-so-choice words about Dell's character, which in turn makes Dell furious enough to start smashing objects around him. This allows Philip to live vicariously through Dell's actions and even eggs him on to destroy some of his most prized possessions. That brief moment between them was a fairly successful purge of some serious inner demons. Thankfully, it leads to the two opening up and having a great time. Philip's spirits are raised to an even greater extent when his epistolary relationship is taken to the next level when Lily calls to confirm a date. So props to the people behind the scenes for providing such a seamless transition. When the date between Lily and Philip commences, there is to some extent an innocence there. What's discernible from this encounter is the delicate approach from both Philip and Lily, with the former making a comeback in the dating game as a quadriplegic and the latter a librarian, finding herself in a unique circumstance, who gradually throughout the date becomes increasingly uneasy and inundated by undertaking this date enthusiastically without trepidation, which in turn inadvertently wounds Philip's sensibilities to the point he abruptly leaves the restaurant to avoid any further discomfort and awkwardness. Lily's rejection causes a rift between Dell and Philip, so much so that Philip, in his anger towards Dell for being officious and too assertive, about taking their epistolary relationship to a physical one, decides it was time to part ways and fires him. In doing so, Dell, after a fashion, decides to put a down payment on a new home for his family and establish his own business building motorized wheelchairs, all of which is possible because of the seed money he received for the artwork Philip sold on his behalf, while Philip, on the other hand, falls into a state of despair. Now, the way they capture how deep his despondency is, to me, a testament to Bryan Cranston's performance. The subtleties really gives credence to the saying, even little things can make a big difference, which ties back to Dell and who he is as a person. A man unafraid to be himself, which I think strike a chord with Philip, which is another reason why I believe it's the reason why Philip is disheartened in the first place. He clearly misses his brash frankness and unapologetic candor. So it's no wonder when Dell is informed of Philip's withdrawn mood that he immediately sees to his old friend and takes him on a sabbatical away from the city and to a paragliding trip. During the duo's respite, Dell pulls a Hail Mary and surprises Philip with bringing Yvonne out to visit him, and the look he gives her is more than the look of being taken aback. He's clearly awestruck, almost as if he's seeing her for the first time, which is an endearing sequence to behold. Dell leaves the lovebirds to catch up, and as the film draws to a close, it ends with a crescendo playing in the background as Philip and Dell paraglide off into the horizon. So overall, this in a nutshell is a feel-good movie, one that was fairly successful in its execution. I guess you could say it's a departure for Kevin Hart, as most of his films fall under comedies or action comedies, if you will. But as far as dramedies are concerned, I'd say he wears that suit well, and personally, I wouldn't mind seeing him flex his wings a little more and dip his toes in more films like these. Overall, grading this film, I'd say it's a B, maybe a B+. With this being a remake, I straight away wanted to compare it to the original, because from my experience, when Hollywood players adapt a foreign film, the foreign film usually tends to be a little bit better. But I'm being verbose at this point, so we've reached the end of this review. I want to thank you humbly for taking time out of your day to visit my channel. Please, if you want to support, hit that like, share, or subscribe button. The PayPal is in the description box, as well as music credits to my boy Thomas, aka Toz. If you ever need any beats, he'll set you up proper. DM him for any business inquiries. Thank you so much again. I'm out. Your boy signing off. Yeah.